Allman, who can be extended. What are they going to do? So all of that is a long way to say, Kyle, I wonder if McDavid goes short term. This is purely my opinion. My opinion. I wonder if McDavid goes short term. I wonder if he signs for only a couple years, a few years. And it's like Matthews. Matthews has done 3, 5, and 4, right?
Yes, but the motives would be totally different.
Kyle, I think you're totally right. And, it also, one of the reasons could be that we just don't know where the cap is going beyond 3 years. But I just wonder if McDavid says, this is not about me leaving Edmonton, because again, I don't think he's eager to flee there. It's about me saying, I want everybody sharp every year. For example, he's going to be 29 in January. What if he extends for 2 years? And then he can sign again at 31. That means his commitment to Edmonton at the time is 13 years. Right?
Wow. Yeah, no, you're right. It's amazing.
That makes him an Oiler for 13 years. 13 years. And what it does also is it says, hey, I'm here, but I need everybody to be, I don't let anyone get complacent. If I was in his shoes, I would consider that.
Wow. Because I'm totally with you on trying to read between the lines here. I mean, I don't profess to know him particularly well on a personal level, but you've always got the sense that he is well aware, certainly as he's gotten older, the kind of weight that his comments can carry when he decides to be honest on certain things or to weigh in on certain topics. And this was going to be one where everyone's hanging on every word. I didn't for a second look at this as, is this any type of negotiating tactic? Is it a threat to none of that? Like, the contract, when it comes time for it, will all take care of itself that way. Listening to that on Thursday to me was like, it was, okay, what is this organization thinking? What is their plan to ensure we've got an opportunity to win again next year and the year after? You heard Leon Draisaitl say, Core's not old, very much still in our prime. So how are they helping that group right now? That was my thought, listening to all of that. And now, the idea of a short term, man, it would be, in a way, unprecedented, but I totally see where you're coming from.
That's, again, I want to stress that this is my opinion.
Yeah.
My opinion. And I'll say this, if I was the Oilers, first of all, the Oilers are going to do whatever he wants to do. It's like Matthews, the last contract, at least asked him for 5 years. He said no 4. They did 4, right? Like, he gets to write his own ticket. They're going to do whatever he wants. And again, if I was the Oilers, I wouldn't be afraid of it.
No. Because you've got that.
I mean, obviously you want him for 8 years if you can get it, but
you've got the best player in the game that wants to win there.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure everyone is aligned in that thinking.
Yeah, I got to tell you, like I said, just my thought. But watching that, that's what jumped into my head. And maybe 2 years is too short. Maybe it's 3 or 4 or whatever. But if you told me this was not going to end up at 8 and was going to be much shorter than 8, after that press conference, I could see it. And I'll tell you this again, if I was the Oilers, I'd roll even if it was just a 2-year extension. If I knew I had 3 more years at McDavid, I am all in and I am going to work, and I believe I can win. You've been 3 wins away from the prize the last 2 years combined.
Right there. Wow. And he very much confirmed what his tone was suggesting in the aftermath of Game 6, that last year it was heartbreak, this year it was anger. It's a completely different feel in listening to the Oilers this year as opposed to 1 year ago.
You know what I wonder about too, I have to say, like, you saw those videos of Tkachuk, right? Where they're dancing the Pink Pony Club, and Greer was like the comment about the Oilers.
Yes.
Like I gotta say this. I think the rivalry between Tkachuk and the Oilers is very real. Very real. And it goes back to that Battle of Alberta, that playoff series where the Oilers won in 5 games.
Right, and even before that.
Well, I mean, absolutely. Like, you're right. Like, some of those games were awesome. Just like the Cassian, Tkachuk stuff, and Mike Smith and Cam Talbot. Oh, those bring back such great memories, those broadcasts, Kyle. Thank you for making me smile tonight. But in particular, when Calgary lost to Edmonton in that playoff Battle of Alberta, I know that the Flames, the Oilers felt that they broke the Flames. They ended that group, right? Like, that team was pretty much broken up after that. And some of the Flames told me that they knew that I've talked before that the Oilers had kind of discussed that, and the Flames knew the Oilers felt that way. And so we talked about that once on the pod, I think, Kyle, and one of the Flames players from that team told me that the worst thing about it is, like, we have to eat it because they're right. They beat us so badly that we were never the same team again, right? The team was gone. And so I think the feelings between Tkachuk and those Oilers are very real. And some of the other players who are on that Flames team and those Oilers are very real. So Tkachuk beats them twice in a row, and it's a little bit of revenge for him. And, don't forget, in that series, the Battle of Alberta, Kane got the better of him. He took him right out of the series. This time, Tkachuk gets the better of Kane. And I would bet, like, seeing those Pink Pony Club videos and things like that, it grinds on the Oilers that Tkachuk got them again. It's hard enough to lose the Stanley Cup final, but I would bet it grinds on those guys that Tkachuk got them again. Like, it's I've heard between the players on those teams, it's very real. Very real.
You saw it on that was another nasty, nasty series.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And by the way, as the Panthers have remained in celebration mode, like, remember last year it was kind of oh, how cool is that? Like, they've brought the Stanley Cup to the Elbow Room. Hey, did you hear? They brought the Stanley Cup to the Elbow Room. Everybody in South Florida knew where to be. league is starting to look, or continuing to look harder at?
So this is the story there. So he had a knee surgery, as you said, in January, and it forced him to stop his rehab from the other surgery for a few weeks. And that is the one the league has put the spotlight on. Because basically their opinion is, did he really need this surgery? And if he didn't really need this surgery, could he have been back sooner? Now, the Oilers, I think, believe that this was not a thing anymore. But from what I've heard, the league had indicated to them at the start of the playoffs, or at least indicated at the start of the playoffs, we're not going to pursue this anymore because you guys are playing, but we reserve the right to bring it back up again after you're done. So now, this is where we are. I'll be honest, I don't really like it. They're about to change this, I believe, in the new CBA, Kyle. Like, what I expect them to do is say that in the playoffs, your roster can be whatever, but your in-game lineup has to be under the cap. That's what I'm expecting. I can't say 100%, but that's what I'm expecting. But I just think that so many people have abused this over the years. Why should the Oilers get a penalty when so many other teams haven't? You know, I will say that it's not my opinion that matters on this one. And I do think the league grinded teams this year. Like Kane, even when he came back, he had to miss a playoff game first. And if you look like Tyler Seguin, he came back one game before the playoffs, right? And I had a few people circling that and saying that one kind of had the league saying, well, if he can't play in the regular season, how do you expect him to play game one? Kind of like what happened with Kane missing that first game. So they did grind teams a lot harder this year. I don't know. It's been abused so much over the years. I don't think it's right that Edmonton should pay a penalty here potentially, but obviously the league's vote matters a lot more than mine. And they have been all over that particular procedure.
Yeah, and anyway, I know we're not going to get to the bottom of this, but the whole, well, we reserved the right to look into this afterwards. So what happened? I mean, what if he ripped off 5 goals he had a great first 3 rounds, and he rips off 5 goals in the final, Edmonton wins the cup, and then they decide to come back around and punish the Oilers for all of this? Like, how would the Florida Panthers feel about that? I know it's all a moot point because that's not what happened, but the whole revisionist nature of this, how it seems to be, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But what you're saying there about this new provision that's going to be in the CBA, you anticipate in terms of LTIR, because we talked, remember we had the question in the thought line not too long ago about teams that in the cup final that have been over the salary cap, and basically all of the last 5 or 6 have been over.
Yeah.
And so if you've got to be under for the 20 guys that you dress, boy, that could drastically shift some teams' thinking when you get to the 3rd week of April.
I have to tell you, if this does happen as I expect, I'm a little bit surprised, because one player did tell me that there were a few of them that had talked. Like, how do you explain to the guy who you're going to agree to a rule change with and he can't play in the playoffs?
Right. Right.
So I thought that was pretty fascinating, but it does look like something's changing there.
Okay. So, number of things to keep an eye on in Edmonton as we inch closer to the official beginning of the offseason. Meanwhile, in Dallas, Elliot, a bit of a newsy day there on Thursday. So it started in the morning. Matt Duchene, 4-year extension, $4.5 million AAV, front-loaded. This was what his wish was. He wanted to have some security in his life again with where he's at, the age of his kids, all of that. So the 4-year deal there. And then Thursday night, the trade of Mason Marchment to Seattle for a 3rd and 4th round pick. Marchment was entering the final year of his contract. Dallas right up against it, cap hit-wise. So why don't you take us through the Stars' thinking through what they got done here on Thursday, Elliot?
Well, Duchesne was a big one for them. He wanted to stay. I think Duchesne was going to have a market out there. I had heard that. I especially heard that Duchesne was going to have some offers out there that might not be as long as 4 years, but would have a higher AAV than he got from Dallas. And I think Vancouver was one of those teams. I had heard the Canucks were interested in him and were disappointed he didn't get on the market. But Duchesne had made it very clear he didn't want to go, and Dallas made it work. And they front-loaded it, too, with bonuses. I think in terms of actual dollars, like the total contract, I think Duchesne got more money overall with Dallas, but I think he would have gotten a higher AAV in a shorter term in some other places in Vancouver. But he was happy, and Kyle, the old Bob McCown saying, don't leap with happy. Good for him. Kyle, the reaction to the Marchment trade was really interesting. There was a lot of that's it from other fan bases out there. I think the Stars fans understand that they're in such a jam and with the cap situation that they were going to have to move somebody for no return. And I don't think anyone's surprised Marchment was the guy. But I think a lot of other fan bases are kind of sitting there and saying, we couldn't beat that. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody did. One thing about Jim Nill is he's pretty good at, very good actually, about, trading a guy like Marchment and saying, I'm going to put you in a good situation. Merrick had a tweet tonight about how he sent him to Seattle because the tax situation was similarly advantageous. The other thing, too, is Marchment is the kind of player Seattle needs. The Kraken are trying to build an identity. Marchment, whether you like him or don't like him, he has a big identity. I think he's going to play there, and he's the kind of personality they need there, on the ice especially. And I think Nill recognizes that. Kyle, we talked about with Marchessault in Nashville. He came from a no-tax state, Vegas. He went to a no-tax state, Nashville, and he has control over the situation. And one of the things I'd heard was that if he got traded from the Predators, he would only agree or basically say, I don't want to go somewhere where my contract could become less valuable. That's part of the equation. And I think that's also what happened a little bit here. I understand why some fans are going to look at this and say, my team couldn't beat that. First of all, he did have some small protection, so certain teams wouldn't be there. And secondly, Nill made a point of making sure he went into a situation. But I would bet there's some other teams here that would also be pretty disappointed they couldn't get Marchment. I heard there was a lot of interest.
So, basically, you bring in 4.5 with the Duchesne deal.